Good evening. My name is Charlie Adkins, and I am this year's chair of the VIP Distinguished Speaker Series. The VIP Distinguished Speaker Series is one of the many programs put on by the Undergraduate Business Council for the Macomb School of Business. We are happy to be co-hosting this event with the Department of Computer Sciences. Today, we are joined by Dean David Platt, Associate Dean of Macomb's undergraduate programs, and Mr. John Donahoe, President and CEO of eBay Inc. We will begin tonight with an interview between Dean Platt and Mr. Donahoe. Then we will open the floor to Q&A from the audience. As a reminder, today's event will end promptly at 6:30 p.m. We would greatly appreciate if you could refrain from leaving early and using electronic devices. Mr. Donahoe has been President and CEO of eBay Inc. since March 31st, 2008. Under Mr. Donahoe's leadership, the company has become a global commerce platform and payments leader, with revenue in 2012 of $14.1 billion. Across its eBay, PayPal, and GSI commerce platforms, the company enabled $175 billion in e-commerce in 2012, which represents about 18% of e-commerce worldwide and 2% of retail globally. The company also is a mobile commerce leader, with eBay mobile commerce volume of $13 billion in 2012 and PayPal mobile payments volume of $14 billion. The company is focused on enabling commerce as a partner, not a competitor, to sellers of all sizes, from entrepreneurs to small businesses to global brands and retailers. Mr. Donahoe joined eBay in March of 2005 as president of eBay Marketplaces, responsible for all elements of eBay's global e-commerce businesses. In this role, he focused on expanding eBay's core businesses, which accounts for the majority of the company's revenue. Mr. Donahoe also oversaw a number of strategic acquisitions, including Shopping.com, StubHub, and classified sites such as Gumtree. During his 3-year tenure as president of Marketplaces, revenues and profits for the division doubled. Prior to eBay, Mr. Donahoe spent more than 20 years at Bain & Company, a worldwide consulting firm based in Boston. Starting as an associate consultant, Mr. Donahoe rose to become the firm's president and CEO, overseeing Bain's 30 offices and 3,000 employees in 1999. Mr. Donahoe received a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from Dartmouth College and an MBA from Stanford Graduate School of Business. Additionally, Mr. Donahoe serves on the board of directors for eBay Inc. and Intel Corp. Please help me welcome Dean Platt and Mr. John Donahoe.
Thank you, Charlie.
Please don't call me Mr. Donahoe. I've never felt so old. Call me John.
Feel like your father?
Yes, exactly. We'll move that down.
Well, welcome. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Great opportunity.
You guys are lucky. Wonderful campus, beautiful campus, and obviously fabulous school.
And lucky to have you here as well.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, the first question, as Charlie said, is something, as you know, since you just recorded one, with each speaker in this VIP speaker series, we request that the speaker record a question for the subsequent speaker. And I think this is a softball. I don't know if you know Ken Hicks or not, but this looks like a perfect question for an eBay CEO. So let's go ahead and roll the tape on the question from Ken Hicks, the CEO of Foot Locker.
Hi, John. Welcome to Texas. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself, being in God's country. But I wanted to ask you, when you look at the .com business, what impact do you think that's going to have on brick and mortar? And how, as a brick and mortar retailer, should I best address the .com business? Appreciate the help. Thanks.
Well, you know, that gets it to the, I'll make a statement up front that's potentially a provocative statement, but I think there'll be more change in how consumers shop and pay in the next 3 to 5 years than there's been in the last 20. So that's a somewhat controversial statement, but more change in a 3 to 5 year period than you've seen in 20. And the reason is technology is on the verge of transforming what's going to happen in retail, Foot Locker or others. Here's the analogy I'd use. How many of you have an iPad or a tablet? How many of you consume your media in a different way today through your tablet than you did before you had an iPad? Yeah, me too. All right. I used to get my newspaper, my magazines. I used to watch TV at the times the shows were on. Yeah. I used to have to do things in the way that the media companies wanted me to. Mm-hmm. Now, I want my news and my media when I want it, where I want it, how I want it. I want it on my terms. And the iPad's only 3.5 years old. So a piece of technology has fundamentally transformed the media industry and put consumers in charge. And that's had significant impact in the media industry, been big winners and big losers. By the way, we're all consuming more media as a result. Mm-hmm. From what we see, the same thing's about to happen to the retail world. And here's the simple analogy. If I'd have been here 3 years ago, I'd have said we're an e-commerce company. We compete in e-commerce, online. And Foot Locker is an offline retailer. But this piece of technology is fundamentally changing that. This is blurring the lines or obliterating the lines of how consumers behave, right? When I'm now in a Foot Locker store, I may read reviews, I may check prices, I may, when I'm sitting at home, pick out what I want. In fact, of all retail transactions last year in the United States, well over 50% consumers access the web at some point in the shopping experience. So this notion of online versus offline, e-commerce versus retail, that distinction's gone. And the consumer is now in charge. That we can get what we want, when we want it, how we want it. And if I want it online, if I want it delivered to me today, I want it delivered at home, I want to buy it online and pick it up in the store, I want to go try it on. So retail's being transformed. And there are many that say that e-commerce is going to, or online is going to kill the offline retailer. I don't believe that. That's happened in digital categories like books. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe that's going to happen at a place like a Foot Locker or clothing stores or other retailers, because consumers are still going to want to try things on, still want to touch the product. Mm-hmm. But what is going to change is that these retailers need to digitally enable the shopping experience. And that's a lot of what we do at eBay, is we're helping, as Charlie said earlier, helping these retailers like Foot Locker or even smaller ones deliver their products to consumers all over the world, whether it's online or offline.
Good. So a number of these questions were submitted by students, and they're imagining their careers and the rest of the trajectory of their education. One of the questions was to take you back to your early days. Tell us about your first job.
Well, my first real job, we were just talking about it, was at a paper route.
That's right.
But my first, I'd say, legitimate job was I worked on a beer truck when I was during my summers in high school. I had to join the Teamsters Union. Yeah, it was a job of a lifetime for a 17-year-old kid, and I had to join the Teamsters Union, and it was in downtown Chicago, and I was the helper. If one of the drivers or helpers went on vacation, I was a fill-in. And it was an eye-opening experience because I got to see neighborhoods and things that I hadn't seen before, and I got to see how life out in the real world worked. Mm-hmm. And it was a great learning experience for me. One specific story is we had these big beer trucks. You still see them today. They load they fill them up and they drop it in the bars and liquor stores. And at the end of every day, we'd come back to the warehouse and get filled up for the next day, fill up the truck of cases of beer. And one day I asked the driver, could I pull the truck into the warehouse? And he said, sure. So I'm like, this is great. And so I'm pulling the big beer truck into the warehouse and I smack it right into the door. Dent this thing. This check. I think, I'm going to not only get fired, I'm going to get killed. And I go in and the warehouse manager's looking at me with this stern look. And then he just starts laughing. And he says, I hope you learned something. And it was a great lesson as a boss, because he could have, I learned more by him not chewing me out than by had he chewed me out. So the fact that he said, you know what, you made a stupid mistake, don't do it again. Great learning experience.
That's great.
And a lot of free beer.
You disclosed that on your tax return, I assume.
Yes.
Fringe benefit. So over the course of the various jobs that you've had, what do you think has distinguished you from others so that you've gotten to the point where you are now?
Well, you know, Dave, I think the most important thing for any leader is how fast can you learn and how fast can you grow? And I've always had this fear that my capabilities were going to hold my team back. And I remember when I was early in my career watching these world-class athletes and watching how the best athletes took their own development more seriously than anyone else. You know, when Michael Jordan came into the NBA, he redefined what it took to compete. He worked out on game days. He identified his weaknesses and worked on them relentlessly. He got a chef. He took everything around it more seriously. Kobe Bryant's done that today. Tiger Woods, when he came into golf, redefined. They worked harder, and they didn't just fall back on their strengths. They worked to continue to grow and develop themselves and take their capabilities to the next level. And I felt like that's what I want to do in business. I want to work harder to learn every day. And what, as you know, is you get, the more responsibility you get in your career, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And the need for me to learn, the need for me to grow has never been greater today as CEO of eBay than it has at any point in my career. So this ability to want to learn and never be afraid to say, I want to learn, and keep learning and growing, I think has been the most important lesson for me and something I've tried to live out.
And others have taken that less seriously then?
Well, I just think, what tends to happen is you get into a place and people like to say, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And what's strange is, as a leader, you know this, that when the leader walks in and acts like I know everything we're talking about, people don't actually bring forward ideas. If the leader says, hey, I want to learn, what's your ideas, what's going on, you can be a magnet for the best ideas. And the best ideas rarely come from the leader. In fact, the leader's job is to call out, to identify the best ideas, and then ensure that we act upon them. And so I think there's too many leaders and too many people at stages of your career where you feel like I have to have all the answers and I have to act perfectly confident, like I know all the answers all the time. And I sort of have tried to adopt almost the opposite, which is there's a lot I don't know and I want to learn from the people around me.
That's great. So in terms of career mistakes, we've all made mistakes. What's the biggest one you've made other than wrecking the beer truck? And what did you learn from it?
Dave, for me, I think my biggest mistakes, usually you think mistake, I took risk and it didn't work out. My biggest mistakes were risks I didn't take. I can't think of any, I've made some mistakes, and you know what, I've lived through them, and you learn from them.
Yep.
I think there have been way too many times where I didn't act boldly enough or didn't have the courage to move fast enough. A classic one is giving people feedback, giving constructive feedback. Early in my career, I was afraid, I like someone, you don't want to hurt their feelings, and I didn't have enough courage at that stage of my career to take the risk to say, I think you do these things really well, but you aren't doing these things well, and this is where you need to improve. And that's just a small example of taking risk. So for me, had I do it over again, and what I try to get up and tell myself every day is, how do I take more risk? How do I make more mistakes? And I think, and now the mistakes would have more visible consequences. But as a company, we're a technology company, we have to take risks. We have to have some failures. So I'm trying to push myself to take more, not less.
And speaking of taking risks, you pretty much had to reinvent the strategy for eBay when you took over as CEO. How do you do that? How do you take a company that is struggling and figure out what keeps them from continuing down that path and get them on the right path? I guess that's even harder.
Well, this is where my training from Bain, I think, really helped, because you have to start with the customer. Mm-hmm. In any business, you have to start with the customer, okay, and see your business through the eyes of the customer. And understand the customer can choose you or can choose your competing alternatives. And the simple fact of the matter is eBay had been the hottest company on earth, mm-hmm, but during that time it had stopped innovating, mm, and people were innovating around them. And customers were saying, I can get a better experience elsewhere. And eBay was in denial. Mm-hmm. So the more I listened to customers, the more I realized we had to confront reality. Listening to customers and then facing the brutal facts and confront reality. And so literally 4 days after becoming CEO, I stood up in front of an auditorium that was somewhat like this, filled with eBay sellers, and said, we are in a turnaround. And no one likes that word, turnaround. No one wants to be part of a turnaround, because turnaround signals something's wrong. Yeah. But the truth of the matter is everyone knew it was true. eBay had stopped innovating. Yeah. And so by listening to the customers, confronting reality, and labeling it, that was the start of what was a multi-year process to begin to literally change almost everything about the company and the shopping experience. Hmm. And it's you talk about taking risks. It felt so good to really finally tell the truth that everyone knew about eBay in 2008, mm-hmm, that it hadn't kept up. And it felt good for about 24 hours, because then all hell broke loose. Yeah. Because people, while they may recognize the need for change, no one really likes to change. This is another thing you learn in business, you learn in life. No one really likes to be forced to change, even if they know they need it. And we needed to make a lot of change. And so we did over a 4 year period. Mm-hmm. And that we re-injected more technology into the company, more innovation into the company. We evolved, we invested and made some big bets like mobile and PayPal, and now we've got strong growth coming out of it. But it was good things really come through an easy process.
Yeah, so that's a good lead into my next question, because you talk about having to initiate that and then to evolve. How do you distinguish, or can you even distinguish the technological evolution that eBay had to go through from the business process evolution?
You know, that's where, and I'm not a technologist, so I had to learn technology. Mm. That's one of those learning areas. I had to get the best technology people around me, mm-hmm, and make sure I was. But through the eyes of the customer, think about when you use this device. Are you thinking, is this a business model thing I'm using, or is it a piece of technology? It's just your experience. And the words inside of a company can be very misleading. The fact of the matter is, people want to have a good, safe, convenient, intuitive experience. I have this problem in eBay and PayPal today, because there's buying and paying. So I say, all right, how many people, when you use iTunes, how many people here use iTunes? Okay. When you use iTunes, are you buying or are you paying? Yes, right? How many of you, I'll let you answer this question honestly only once. How many of you use Amazon one-click? Good. Can you leave, please? No, just kidding. All right, how many of you here use eBay? All right, now we're talking. How many of you use PayPal? Okay. How many of you like 3 clicks to check out when you use PayPal? It's crazy. It's freaking crazy. I say to the PayPal team, no one wants to pay. It may be a great payments product, but how do we make it simple? How do we make it intuitive? And technology is an enabler. Yeah. And the more you see things through the eyes of the customer, the more you can knock down the boundaries in any business. Sales, marketing, engineering, technology, all the functions of a business who view their world that way. When you look at it through the lens of the consumer wants to have a great experience. I want it to be easy, safe, convenient, and fun. And we're continuing today to try to work on the whole end-to-end experience of our customers. Mm-hmm. And it's better than it was, but we're still not as good as I want us to be.
Yeah. It is a lot better than it used to be. And I guess it's true, though, that if you don't innovate and figure out what the next thing is, somebody else is going to innovate around you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, technology, the pace of change, the pace of innovation, mm-hmm, is fast, and it's faster than it's ever been, and it's accelerating. Yeah. It's accelerating at a stunning pace.
What do you see as the next big technologies? What are you focusing on now?
Well, I think mobile changes everything. And today we think of this as mobile as a smartphone. What we see is that we're going to have a world where there's going to be, I don't know, 20, 30 million connected devices all around the world. So you may have, this is one form factor, a tablet may be another form factor, your laptop, your TV will have touch. We're helping put store windows, make them touch screens. So you go to New York, we've worked with Kate Spade. The CEO, Kate Spade, says to me, he says, "It's crazy, John. We close the stores at night, and we have more customers walking past our storefronts at night than we do during the day because people are out at night in New York. Can I turn my store window into a big touch screen?" So we've done that in New York. And so if you go to certain storefronts, you have a big touch screen on the store window, and consumers go by and they can touch and they look, they shop, and then we use eBay Now to get it delivered to them within a couple of hours. So I think you're going to see a world of connected devices and screens everywhere where you can access the web. And that's going to, this tabletop maybe, and that's going to enable you to have a more, I think, engaging, seamless experience across your life. And that's certainly what we're trying to do, is build seamless experiences across all different connected devices.
So you just made a big acquisition in the UK, I think it was, for the same-day delivery company. I can't remember the name.
Shuttle.
Shuttle, yeah. And so are there limits to where that's going? Do you think, is that the next big thing?
Again, it gets back to this theme I was saying earlier around consumer choice, the consumer's in charge. Here's what we see, is that consumers want the flexibility and choice of how they shop. So as I said earlier, there are times where I want to shop online, either on my mobile phone or on my tablet or on my laptop, and I want it delivered to me at home tomorrow or the next day. I don't need it right now. In fact, I don't want to deal with it. I want to order it and get it. There are other times where I want to look at it and shop, and I need it right now or I need it today. And that's eBay Now, the same-day delivery service you're talking about, where we're helping retailers deliver things in the same day. There are other times you say, you know what, I want to order it, and hey, it's available in the store. I'd love to pick it up on my way home, or I'd love to go pick it up in the store. I want to know it's there. I've already bought it. I want it to be convenient. There are other times you say, I want to know what's in the store, but I want to go into the store because I want to try it on. I want to touch it. I want to feel it. And there are other times you want to just go into the store without ever having looked online. And so if you look at what we're doing, is we're trying to give consumers those choices. And what's interesting is, people talk about, oh, they're e-commerce only or they'll never shop e-commerce. We're finding more and more consumers shop different ways for different things in different situations. So having that choice, I think, is going to be the wave of the future. So the consumers, all of us, when we shop, we get it where we want it, when we want it, and how we want it.
So here's an adaptation of a student question for you, a little more career-oriented. So business graduates are sometimes accused of having delusions of grandeur, let's say, thinking of themselves as CEOs right from the beginning. And it's true that we actually teach them quite a bit about leadership, emphasize leadership, encourage them to be aggressive in their careers. How do you reconcile that with starting out in your career? What role can you play in the beginning and still feel like you're making your mark?
I don't know, I guess for me it's about impact, team, and learning. And if you stay focused on working on a team and getting results through teams, I very rarely have seen an individual get outstanding results consistently over time alone. So if you want to have big impact, you're going to have to work on a team. So I think it starts with, how am I going to be part of a team and make my team better?
Okay.
2, how am I going to learn? And that's why, the paranoia I feel about learning more and more every day is to deliver for my team and for whatever company, whatever role I'm in. And then impact. Ultimately, it's impact. And you measure success and impact. And, I think that's true in your first year out of a business school, and it's true in your 30th year in business, which is, If you focus on, I got to work through a team, I want to do my part and learn each and every day, and I measure my success on impact, you'll be fine. If you try to demonstrate that you're the best, or you try to exaggerate your knowledge, I think you have less impact and you're not as good a team player.
And that's the same for business students, technology students,
Yeah.
any student trying to make.
You know, I think those are just labels. You know, when I was named CEO of eBay, I was probably the first non-technology CEO or non-technology trained CEO of a major internet company. Okay. You know, I sat down with Pierre Omidyar, our founder, the night I was named CEO. I said, Pierre, what's your biggest concern about me in this role? He said, you're not a technologist. I said, great. So what are we going to do about that? And we talked through that night, and I went out and I hired a CTO who was going to be at my side. I didn't pretend I was something I wasn't. I said, I got to surround myself with the best technologists because I'm not one.
Right.
Went out and recruited Mark Andreessen onto our board. Went out and, so I think, again, if you sort of take this mindset, is what's it necessary to win? What's it necessary to have impact? What kind of team do I need to build around me? And then how do I help enable that team to have the impact? Whether you start out as a business person or an engineer or a marketing person or a computer scientist, at the end of the day, the people that have the most impact are the people that can bring all the pieces together and lead to an outcome.
Okay, good. So there was a great article a couple of days ago, I'm sure you read it in the Wall Street Journal, about the CFO factory that eBay has become, and the statistic was something like, you know, more than 20 CFOs of technology companies in Silicon Valley and beyond in the last 3 years have come out of eBay.
Yeah.
So what's in the Kool-Aid, number one, and when you evaluate people in terms of, you know, identifying those people who should rise up, what do you look for?
Well, you know, the credit for that goes to our CFO, Bob Swan.
Okay.
And I don't think I've ever met someone that embodies team, learning, and impact more than Bob.
Okay.
He was trained at GE, and GE has a really strong finance function.
Yep.
And so what Bob's brought into eBay is a really strong finance function where people join and they grow and they develop. And they're not just finance people, they're business partners. Bob is as much a COO as he is a CFO. And he expects the people in the finance organization to act and think like business people, not just be finance guys or finance women. And so what's happened is they get great experience and they grow. And other companies, particularly startups, see that and they hire them. And what's interesting is most people would say, you know, Bob comes and says to me, well, Sean just got recruited away to be a CFO. You think, oh, we lost a really good guy with Sean. Bob's like, that's great. That demonstrates we're cultivating great people, and he's got a strong bench. So what, you know, when Sean goes, Mary, who's next in line, gets to step up to an even bigger role. And he's just built a really strong team with a strong esprit de corps, and that team is rabid about learning and growing. And it just feeds on itself. And it's really fun. And then as a result, the impact that Bob's having and the eBay finance team is not just in our own company. The impact is multiplied across 20 other, 30 other companies. So it's, how cool is that?
Yeah, and some of those companies are actually your business partners now, right?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's the other thing you learn in life and you learn in business. You've seen this too, I'm sure. Life is short and the world is small. Do not underestimate how valuable it is to build a good and consistent reputation through your career. And do not underestimate how people that take shortcuts or act in ways that you don't respect and admire, you may see them get ahead in the short term. You may see them get ahead in your own company, or you may see them get ahead. And the media is horribly misleading in this, because the media will cover and promote who's ever hot at the moment. But my experience is the people that take shortcuts, or the people, and I don't mean unethical shortcuts even, but they just don't, they don't carry the values that at least I would want. What goes around comes around. The longer you're in business, the more you see that.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And the people that, and I encourage all of you to do this, stay true to your own values. Stay true to who you are. Even if you feel like it's not being rewarded in the short term, it gets rewarded over time, because you build a reputation and reputations build on themselves. And it's amazing how many jobs I probably get 5 to 10 reference calls a week from people I've worked with in one form or another over the years, and they don't know I'm getting a call. So the informal network turns out to be quite important. So I just think if my most important piece of advice to all of you is take your own learning and development seriously. The second would be stay true to who you are and build a consistent long-term reputation. It'll pay off for you.
That's great. Before we open it for questions, let me ask you 2 more of the sort of the high-level kinds of questions. Who do you admire the most?
My father. And you know, I learned 2 things from my dad, and I wasn't aware I was learning them while I was just observing him. My dad was a very successful business person. He worked for Price Waterhouse in Chicago. And my dad did not have the word I in his vocabulary. I didn't notice it at the time, but he would never talk about himself. He was always interested in the other person. You'd sit down at a dinner and he'd say, "Hey, how you doing?" He'd ask questions. He was always curious. It was always about us, team, in whatever context. And the second thing, my dad treated everyone the same. So he was a bigwig in the Chicago business community, and I'd be with him tagging along as a 12-year-old kid, and I'd meet the CEO of some big company, and then I'd meet the parking lot attendant. My dad treated both the same. You know, it'd be, "Hey, Tommy, how you doing? How the kids doing?" And I saw that he liked people. He treated everyone with respect. And as a result, they liked him. Yeah. And it's one of the things you know, my dad was a leader, but more than he was a leader, my dad created followership. And I think so much about what leadership is leadership's a misleading word because it puts the focus on the leader. Actually, no, the leader's job is to create follower-ship to get to the impact. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I learned that from my dad he never talked about it, he just did it. And I think many of the best leaders are really keep the focus on what is it we as a team are trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And my job as the leader is to enable that and empower people to achieve that rather than to do it myself. Yeah.
Well, my last question was, what's the best piece of advice you were ever given? But I think you've already answered that actions speak louder than words. In that sense.
Yeah. I think, you know, and my dad never gave it to me as a piece of advice. He just lived it.
Yeah. Good. I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there who have questions they'd like to ask. So let's turn it over to Q&A from the audience at this point. Is there a microphone somewhere? There we go. There's a microphone in each aisle, it looks like. So feel free to queue up at the microphones and ask whatever questions you have.
Oops, it looks like you have to stand up and go.
Yeah, it'd be best if you go to a microphone so that we can capture it.
Hi, John. I wanted to ask, so you speak a lot about risk and that we should all take risks in our life. So can you tell us about the biggest risk that you have taken in your career? It could be in eBay or just in your life in general.
Getting married. Now, given who I married, it wasn't such a big risk. I've worked for her for the last 30 years. You know, I don't know, probably the biggest risk in hindsight was joining eBay. And I had a little bit of an inclination that the company I was joining was about to go into a negative cycle, but I sort of knew it, but I didn't fully know it. And then I suppose the risk was to, believe it or not, agree to become CEO at a time when eBay was going to go down like this. And with that risk came the reality that I had to confront reality. And when I stood up, as I said earlier, when I stood up and said, we're in a turnaround, that felt risky. It felt liberating, but it felt risky. And just to, let me just take that forward one bit. I said that people went nuts after announcing it was a turnaround. And the low point for me came 3 months later when we used to have these big eBay seller conventions. And the eBay selling community had gone nuts. They were telling the media, they were starting viral campaigns against me and against the company. And I went to our big seller convention in Chicago. And early in the meeting, someone had threatened one of our employees, and someone videoed it and put it up on YouTube. And I thought, uh-oh, this is going to be bad. eBay security had told me not to go to this meeting because I was going to give a speech in front of 15,000 people, and they were concerned for my safety. So I hear about our employee being threatened. I've opened my laptop. I go into YouTube, which I had not done. I put in eBay, and the first 10 search results were hate videos about me. And the number one search result, which had several 100,000 views, was what John Donahoe was doing to eBay. And they literally took clips from the movie Schindler's List. And they took clips of the German guard shooting the Jewish prisoner, and they imposed my name on the German guard's forehead. And they imposed eBay sellers on the Jewish prisoners' chests. And I watched that thing. I thought, oh my God, here I am thinking I'm doing the right thing, thinking I'm taking the right risk. And this is really personal. This hurts. And I had to ask myself, was taking this risk worth it? Did I believe in what we were trying to do, regardless of what the short-term feedback was, regardless of what. And I'll never forget that night. I was in the Hyatt Hotel in Chicago. And I had to make that decision. I decided, yes, I believe in what we're doing. And the next morning, I stood up on stage in front of 15,000, what was angry eBay sellers, and said, this is why I believe we have to make the changes we do. Because if we don't, it hurts all of us. And that moment, in hindsight, was the turning point. It was the turning point for me personally, and it was the turning point for the eBay community, because I had spoken the truth and stayed true to the belief in what we could be. And risk is always easy in hindsight. It didn't feel like the turning point that moment. It took another couple of years before it felt like a turning point. So as you embrace risk, it's easy to stand up here and say, oh, take risk and accept failure. It's never fun when you're in the middle of it. But I can tell you very few good things in life come without having made some sacrifice along the way.
Thank you.
Let's go over here to the other side.
Hello.
Hi.
So now that you guys have acquired Shuttle, are you guys looking at more unconventional ways of delivering, such as using like quad rotors or unmanned vehicles? Or,
you're talking really unconventional. So for those of you who don't know what Shuttle is, it's in essence a piece of software, a marketplace platform we bought earlier this week, UK-based. And with eBay Now, what that enables us to do is, let's say when eBay Now comes to, it's coming to Dallas. In eBay Now is this app you open up, you can order anything from any of the retailers in Dallas and get it delivered to you the same day. And what Shuttle will enable us to do is say, Dave bought a pair of shoes from Foot Locker, wants them delivered to him, and that's a job that gets bid out to different delivery people in the city. There's a lot of excess delivery capacity in the city, and Shuttle's a software that combines vetted delivery people with that order, much like Uber. Any of you that have ever know about Uber and used Uber. So if unconventional is moving toward more of a disruptive delivery model like Uber, yes. Unmanned cars? Yeah, I'm open to that. I'm open to that. I think it's a couple years down the road. But, you know, absolutely, in our business, we will grab onto any innovation we can to provide a better experience for our customers.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Over here?
Mr. Donahoe, you spoke.
Please call me John. I'm
John,
not that old.
You spoke earlier about how you see in the future technology becoming more and more seamless, allowing consumers to make purchases on their own terms.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could speak on synergies you see in the future between eBay and some of its the acquisitions that it's made over the years, and especially how those synergies would allow for more seamlessness.
So I'm going to give you guys an example to have a seamless experience tonight using PayPal in Austin. PayPal is now accepted all around this campus. And PayPal is a great way to pay with using your mobile device because you don't need your wallet. You don't need a physical wallet. So any of you that haven't downloaded the PayPal mobile app, please do it tonight. Do it right now. And I know you all have PayPal accounts. Once you open up your PayPal mobile app, there'll be $200 of coupons that you can use in retailers, bars, and restaurants all around Austin. In fact, there's a $20 coupon that if you go over to Cafe Medici tonight, $20 of free food and drink when you pay with PayPal in an offline setting. And the cool way you can pay with PayPal in Cafe Medici is either through something we call check-in or using QR codes. So you can use your mobile device to pay. And that's just the beginning of what's possible. So are all you going to use that $20 at Cafe Medici tonight? I'm buying, man, $20 for each of you, $200. Use PayPal wherever you can around here. But to give you an example of how that's the next stage of that is not live yet in Austin, but will be within the next year, when I go to the PayPal campus in San Jose and I walk into the Starbucks, we have a Starbucks in the lobby, I can actually walk in with my phone in my pocket. I walk in and it knows I walked in through Bluetooth technology. I get in line. When I get to the front of the line, on the current cash register, the current point of sale system, existing hardware and software, my name and picture's right there. A barista who's never met me says, "Hey, Mr. Donahoe," or "Hey, John, how you doing? Would you like the usual?" Because they have it notated that I always get a grande coffee. I say, "Yeah." I said, "Great." And they press one button and I've paid. I get a text. But I've just gotten a personalized experience and paid for it without ever having my phone leave my pocket. So remember we were talking earlier about buying and paying, right? So technology and PayPal are going to enable fantastic consumer experiences, more personalized experiences, convenient experiences, giving you coupons and values and offers. And you can do it right here in Austin. So I'll buy $20 tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Hi, John. I had a question about PayPal as well. PayPal is considered by most to be the standard for online payment processing, but many believe that the next big thing is payment processing on mobile devices. Being somewhat of a late entrant into the mobile device market with PayPal here, how do you plan on piercing the market and competing with the likes of Square and Intuit?
So let's just define our terms for a minute. Let's first define mobile payment as not a card swipe on a dongle on a mobile device, which I don't call a mobile payment. That's using a credit card. Let's define mobile payment as I don't need my wallet. I don't need a card, and I press pay on this or a tablet. PayPal did $20 billion of payments volume this year, mobile payments volume. Nobody, Square, Intuit, no one comes close on that kind of true mobile payment. Now, accepting payments in the offline world, which is what Square or PayPal here does, we have the ability, again, consumer choice, to accept a card swipe, but frankly, a card swipe still means you've got to carry around your wallet. And the innovations we're focused on are ones that change that payments experience. So again, here in Austin, in certain restaurants, you're going to be able to order ahead on your mobile phone, and when you walk in, skip the line, pick up your food, and leave. You're going to be able to, in other restaurants like Cafe Medici, if you're sitting at your table, you don't have to wait for the waiter to bring the bill. You can pay your bill from the table. Out in Cafe Medici or other places in Austin, you're going to be able to get a coupon for a little bit off, and when you pay with your mobile device, you get that value. So a lot of our innovations are not just how do I allow a card to be swiped on a smartphone. Our innovation is how do I change the consumer experience so you don't need to carry your physical wallet.
Thank you.
Hey, John. First, a really light question for you. I don't know if you've had this question before, but how many hours do you sleep a day?
How many hours do I sleep a day?
Do you sleep at all?
Not enough. I tell you, during the week I probably sleep 5 to 6, and weekends I sleep more. The best piece of advice I've gotten in the last 2 years is from Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great and Built to Last. And he told me, he said, John, what he does is he says he tries to get 70 hours sleep every 10 days. And he said, actually, he studied the body, and that, at least for him, it doesn't matter if he sleeps 7 hours, 10 straight nights in a row, or if he has a couple hours where he gets a little less, a couple days he gets a little less, and some days he gets more, or he takes a nap. But he has tuned his body to that, so I'm trying to do that. I thought that was a pretty good thing. But my body needs 7 hours a day.
I hope you're not sleeping now.
No, I'm awake now.
And the second question is how much do you think a company rests on the CEO? Say, for instance, if the same John was made the CEO of Apple in 2005, do you think the company would have skyrocketed, or how much a difference can a CEO bring to the company?
I think it differs. I think Steve Jobs is the exception to every rule. In our generation, Jack Welch was the exception to every rule. Jack Welch is viewed to be the imperial CEO. And frankly, everyone that tried to replicate him, no one pulled it off. Steve Jobs was a one of a generation guy. I certainly can't be Steve Jobs, and I think most CEOs can't. In fact, my notion of a CEO is the exact opposite. Most people think of a CEO of top of a pyramid. CEO's in charge, deciding everything, doing everything. I have the exact opposite view. I view at eBay, our pyramid is upside down, and the top of our pyramid are our customers. They're at the top of our org chart because they're why we exist, is to serve our customers. And the top people inside our company in the org chart are the people that deal with our customers every day. They're our customer support teammates in Omaha or in Dublin or in Salt Lake that deal with customers every day. And everybody else in the company exists to support them, to support our customers. And I'm at the very bottom of that org chart. My job's to enable that. And so I think leadership, Jim Collins calls it level 5 leadership, but I think in this day and age of a distributed technology environment, whether you're in technology or not, the best leaders, they call it lead from behind, call it lead from level 5 leadership, it's servant leadership, enabling the company to be successful. And the leaders I admire the most, including some highly visible ones, that's actually what they do in their company. They enable other talented people on their team to thrive and prosper, to serve their customers. So.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate that.
Thank you. We're going to have time for one more question from each side. Sorry about that to everybody. So let's go over here for a last one on this side.
Hi, Mr. Donahoe. I just want to ask you real quick, we've already kind of touched on it, but I guess more specifically, what things, you being where you are now in your stage of life and where we are as college students, what specific advice or what specific things you wish you knew when you were our age?
First of all, enjoy school. Okay. You don't get an opportunity like this again to spend as much time with your friends and colleagues. And I guess if I had maybe one, I've talked so much about learning. Let me just give one small tease on that a little bit. When I came out of business school and college, my model of learning was I was the student, and I learned from professors and teachers. And they were wise, all-knowing people, and I was the eager student. And when I came into the work world, I thought that same model would apply. I'd meet my boss, and I wanted my boss to mentor me, and I would sit at my boss's knees, and he or her would convey their wisdom like a Yoda-like figure, much like in a classroom environment. And that sort of worked for like a year. And then like 2 years, 3 years into my career, I started realizing, wait, my boss is human. My boss is actually not real good at certain things. They're great at other things. And I began to realize that my model for learning was wrong, that instead of trying to learn a lot from a few people, I needed to learn a little from a lot of people. So I started realizing, wait, I need to learn. I can learn from everyone around me. I can learn not just from my boss, I can learn from my peers. I can learn from the people that work for me. I can learn. What is it I can learn? And so every interaction now, every meeting I'm in, I'm thinking, what can I learn? How can I, look at what that person did during that meeting. That was really interesting. I can learn from that. And when you adopt that mindset, the other thing that happens is when you meet people, you look for the good in them, not for the bad. What am I going to learn from this person? And I don't even think about it, but I'm constantly thinking, how can I learn from every interaction I have, from every person I deal with, even little things? So, I don't know, that might be useful as you go on at the next stage of your careers. You can learn from each other.
Cool, thank you.
Great. Hand over here.
I wanted to ask, since many of us are business students who work a lot in teams in our classes, what are some of the best practices you recommend for teamwork, especially from your time at Bain and now being CEO of eBay?
You know, I'd say there are conditions for high-performance teams. Number one, trust. We had an operating principle that when we were at Bain called presume trust. Because the way trust typically works is you earn someone's trust. So say Dean Platt and I never met each other, say we're thrown together on an assignment. Well, if I have to spend the first month earning his trust and vice versa, we've just wasted a month. So we had the presumption, presume trust, which is I'm going to trust him until he proves otherwise, and vice versa. That's a different mindset. It also tied to that learning. It says, I want to work with you. You're on my team. Let's develop an environment of trust from the start. If someone violates it, we'll give them feedback. And then two, being really clear about the goal. What is it we together collectively are trying to accomplish? And do we agree that that goal is better served with all of us working together versus each of us working individually? And then lastly, what's my role? How do I contribute? I don't want to do it all. I've got to, where can I do it? Where can I not? Where can I be honest about what I'm good at and what I'm not? And instead of trying to put all the spotlight on what I'm good at, saying, hey, I'm not so good at this. Can you help fill in here? I'll do my part. So trust, clear goals, and then understanding your role. And then, I don't know, for me, it doesn't get any better than being on a good team, because that's fun. I don't have fun by myself. I'm sorry. I like being on teams. Teams is what's rewarding, fulfilling, and as I said earlier, the greatest things in life almost always come as a result of a team effort. The notion that 1 + 1 + 1 can equal 5. Or when you're eBay, we have 30,000 people working at eBay, and our platforms touch hundreds of millions of people's lives. We positively impact hundreds of millions of people by being a team. How cool is that? So I love being part of a team.
That's pretty cool, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm an accountant, so 1 + 1 + 1 will never equal 5. But this has really been fun. And so thank you so much for being with us. Charlie,
Thanks.
I think you wanted to finish things off here, correct?
Thank you very much, Dean Platt and Mr. Donahoe.
John, please.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come down and speak with our students. I know that we will be able to take the lessons that you have taught us today and apply them into our own lives. As a token of our appreciation, the Undergraduate Business Council would like to present you with a personalized Stetson cowboy hat.
Ah. Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.